streets are playing with my mind. I'm lucid.
Greetings and welcome back to the channel. So I thought we'd do a quick pit stop this weekend just to touch in on the Formula E World Championship. We of course had the third round, the Mexican E-Prix, which took place last weekend, and as a result there have been a few minor updates to the championship standings. Mortara is still on top, I will say that much. So going into this race, once again we had all of the key questions. Would qualifying be as exciting as the first two rounds that we had in Saudi Arabia? Actually, as it turns out, it was even more exciting. I didn't expect it to get too much more exciting, but it did. In the end, we had Andrea Lotterer qualifying in third, Mortara was in second, and it was Pascal Wehrlein for the Porsche who was in first place. And that was quite a final round of qualifying that we had. It was the head-to-head between Pascal Wehrlein and Eduardo Mortara. And Mortara literally lost control of the car coming over the line on his lap and was spinning it around. Very dramatic, and it was a really cool way to finish qualifying. Of course, he lost time because of that, and it was Wehrlein who qualified in first place. Wehrlein was very good all weekend, and in fact I would say that Lotterer was also very good. Lotterer, you'll have often heard me go in on Lotterer and say I think he's a dirty driver, I don't think he has talent, blah 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 blah. So far, 3 races down this season, he's been really good, and actually in the Mexican E-Prix he had an opportunity to touch wheels, shall we say, with a few other drivers, and it was some very clean racing. So I think Porsche realized they have a really good car this year, and he was in it to win it, and unfortunately he wasn't able to win it in the end. But let's get into that. So the final standings actually from the race now. Looking at a rundown of the final finishing places, or the top 10 points finishing places in the race, we had Jake Dennis in 10th place, we had Gunter in 9th, Buemi was in 8th, Freins was in 7th, De Vries in 6th, it was Mortara who only finished in 5th, Da Costa finished in 4th, we had Verne in 3rd place, Lotterer was in 2nd place, and we had, by the way, Lotterer was 0.3 of a second behind the winner, who was his teammate, Pascal Wehrlein. So as we know, it was Wehrlein who started on pole position. He got away to a very good start actually, so Mortara was not able to make the move on him. Things though went a little bit strange as the race progressed, because suddenly Porsche lost speed, and so both of the drivers dropped back through the field. Now, it would later transpire that this was actually Porsche's attempt to save energy during the race. So we saw a real yo-yo effect with a number of teams and a number of cars during this race, and it was Mortara who took over the lead of the race after this happened, and then we saw the DS Tech Cheetah cars coming to the front as well, and they looked very good for a while. Also, in the background, we had Robin Freins, who is driving for the Virgin Racing, of course, and it looked like he was also having a very good race. Then I guess it was with about 15 minutes left in the race. Of course, just as a reminder for anybody who's new to Formula E, the race itself is 45 minutes and then there's one additional lap at the end of the race. So with 15 minutes remaining in the race, suddenly Porsche had a whole load of speed, and it seemed to come out of nowhere. So it seemed like actually it was then the other cars that were going into energy saving. So they stormed their way through the field, both of them, one after the other, coming past the DS Tech Cheetah and then coming past Mortara. And towards the very end of the race, there was about let's say a 1 to 2 second delta between the Porsche cars crossing the start-finish straight, or the start-finish line I should say, and the clock turning 0. They had a 9-second lead over the chasing pack at that point in time. So they had an opportunity to actually slow down and make sure that there was one less lap in the race. They actually didn't do that, and they chose to go for one additional lap on the race, considering they were very tight for power usage at this point in time. Also, many of their competitors were tight. So it actually, from an outsider looking in, it appeared that Porsche got this absolutely spot on. They had their calculations done correctly, and a whole load of cars were in big trouble on that final lap because they actually ran out of usable energy. They had to take their foot off the accelerator, otherwise they were going to be disqualified from the race. So the final finishing positions that we had, the top 10 finishing positions, weren't overly reflective of the race itself. So we did have John-Eric Verne and Da Costa finish in 3rd and 4th place. That was kind of reflective of the race. But Frines and Mortara were there or thereabouts for the entire length of the race, or almost the entire length of the race, and they really fell away towards the end. De Vries and Van Dorn for Mercedes didn't have a great race, but De Vries did manage to pick up 6th place in the end, because there was, as I said, there was this yo-yo effect happening. Buemi came out of nowhere to get 8th place. Gunter, we did not see much from him either, and he was in 9th place. And of course, both of those guys driving for the Nissan E-Dams, so obviously another team that had gotten their calculations more correct than a few of the other drivers. So yeah, that was the result. So what does that do to the championship standings? Well then, let's have a look at where we are right now in the standings. Firstly, starting with the drivers' standings. So it is Eduardo Mortara who still leads the way. He has a total of 43 points. Nick De Vries is in 2nd place with 38 points. Both of those guys didn't pick up a ton of points at the Mexican E-Prix. Pascal Wehrlein moves up into 3rd place on 30 points, and then Lotterer is in 4th place, also on 30 points. So very tight between those two. Now, coming back to the race itself, certainly I'm sure there were team orders in play, because Lotterer was right on the tail of Wehrlein for the majority of the race and never made a move on his teammate. So I think team orders were in play. Lotterer, actually, in fairness to him, looked like he had the speed, and he would have deserved to win that race as well. So just a little side note there. We have Stoffel Van Dorn then, of course, in the other Mercedes. He's in 5th place with 28 points. Jean-Eric Verne is in 6th place with 27 points. Jake Dennis is in 7th place with 26 points, and we have De Grassi in 8th place with 25 points. In 9th is Frines on 24 points, and then Da Costa in 10th, a very distant 10th, on 12 points. But you can see there's a real grouping of drivers there, once again, as we've seen previous years in Formula E, where it's very, very tight. It's very hard to call at this point in time. I know from the first 2 rounds of the championship in Abu Dhabi, I was saying, not Abu Dhabi, sorry, I have Abu Dhabi on my mind from the Formula 1, of course, because of all the shenanigans ongoing over the last week. It was Saudi Arabia, of course, and apologies to anybody that is from Saudi Arabia and would have been offended by that. Certainly not my intention. So it looked like Mercedes were very powerful. Of course, we had the Venturi cars who have a Mercedes powertrain, and then we had De Vries and Van Dorn who were performing quite well over that weekend as well, in particular in qualifying and the first race. Not so much the second race for those two guys. But they never really appeared on it at all at the Mexican E-Prix, and it was all Porsche the whole weekend long, and they seem to be certainly on the pace. Now we have to remember that the Mexican E-Prix, the Mexican circuit, and we've seen this in Formula 1 as well, it's very high altitude there. That potentially has an impact on engines when you're in racing cars. So for the Formula E, or the electric type of series, what impact does that have? And it appears it does have some kind of impact onto battery usage and wear and tear and everything else like that. And it suited the Porsche cars. We've seen that previously as well. Of course, it was last season where Wehrlein almost won the race, but of course he just ran out of usable energy. So in a sense, you could say that Porsche learned a lot from last year. So yeah, it will be interesting when we see at the beginning of April the double header that we have in Italy, the Rome E-Prix, just to see where the teams are at again, and whether or not we can pick a trend in how things are going. Now, if there is one trend we can pick out so far this season based on 3 races or 3 data points, it is that Jaguar are just not on the pace like they were last season, which is both disappointing and surprising. So they have a very strong lineup with Sam Bird and Mitch Evans, and they haven't really been in the mix at all so far in the championship. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they can get a little bit more involved in the mix in the coming races as well. So before I leave, let's have a look at the teams' standings. So in the teams standings, now at the top of the championship, we have Venturi. And Venturi, of course, that's Edo Mortara's car. So he's leading the Drivers' Championship and his team is leading the Teams' Championship. De Grassi didn't have a very strong race at the Mexican E-Prix. He did score, was it 1 or 2 points? So he did score some minor points, but of course he had that second place finish as well in the second round at Saudi Arabia. Got it right this time, by the way. So it's Venturi who are leading the way on 68 points. Only 2 points behind them then we have Mercedes on 66 points. Of course, those are both of the Mercedes powertrain cars. So that's somewhat ominous, I guess. We have Porsche in third place now. Of course, big points haul for them in the Mexican E-Prix. They took 46 points, which is more than anybody else. I think it was Tech Cheetah, who are in fourth in the championship, took 27 points at the Mexican E-Prix, which was the second highest amount of points that any team took. Then we have Virgin in 5th place. We have Andretti in 6th place, and so Virgin are on 31 points, Andretti are on 28 points, and in 7th place we have Jaguar on 13 points, so a bit of a drop away to Jaguar. Nissan E-Dams have 6 points in 8th, Mahindra have 4 points in 9th, and then it's Neo and Dragon who have 0 points so far. And interestingly, of course, Neo and Dragon, there are 2 interesting new rookies, I would say, in there. So for the Neo team, of course, they have Dan Ticktum, who is quite a fiery and controversial character, so will be very interesting to see how he gets on. And of course, Dragon have the one, the only Antonio Giovinazzi, and we all want to see him do very well, and we saw he actually finished on top of the fan boost rankings as well for the Mexican E-Prix, so he has a lot of supporters out there, so certainly we want to see things go a little bit right for him. So that's where we're up to at the moment. As I said, the double header, so the Rome E-Prix is coming up at the very beginning of April, and let me see if I can actually find the dates for that one schedule. I believe maybe the second weekend of April, yes, the 9th and 10th of April. So there we are. Looking forward to that one. Of course, by the time that comes around, we'll already have had the first round of the Formula 1 Championship from Bahrain. Very, very exciting. So the motorsport season is getting well and truly back up to speed again. So thank you very much for joining us. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead, feel free, by all means hit the subscribe button, and also hit the bell if you want to be notified of future videos.